Hey everyone, welcome back to the Marriage is Not the End channel. Today, I'm bringing you another story, one that's heartbreaking, but also eye-opening. Honestly, every time I record a story like this, I have mixed emotions. On one hand, I feel deeply sorry for the person at the center of it. But on the other, I'm proud of her, for her clarity, and for the courage it took to face the truth. Today's story is about a woman named Emily. In just 1 week, her marriage completely fell apart. But in that same week, she also found herself. It's a long story, and I hope you'll stick with me until the end. Because I believe that anyone who has ever felt lost, hurt, or trapped in a marriage will see a piece of themselves in this, or maybe even find some strength. It all started with something incredibly ordinary. So ordinary that you might think, is that really such a big deal? But often, it's these seemingly small things that become the final straw. That day, Emily called her mom. The moment the call connected, she took a deep breath and, in a calm voice that even felt unfamiliar to herself, said, "Mom, I think I might be getting a divorce." On the other end, her mom remained as composed as ever. She was a woman who had been through a lot, nothing seemed to shake her anymore. She simply asked, "What happened?" Emily's hand trembled slightly as she held the phone. "He hasn't replied to me for a week." There was silence on the other end. A few seconds later, her mom spoke again, her voice tinged with confusion and disbelief. "Just because of that? Just because of that?" Emily's voice suddenly rose, her frustration and hurt ignited instantly. "Mom, I've sent him over a dozen messages and called him just as many times. He hasn't answered a single one. Not one. And you think that's nothing?" Her mom tried to calm her, speaking like someone with more life experience. "Maybe he's just busy." "Busy?" Emily let out a cold laugh, full of sarcasm. "Mom, no one is that busy. It takes seconds to send a text saying I'm okay. If he really cared about me, no matter how busy he was, he'd find the time to let me know he's alive." Her mom offered another possibility. Could he be on a business trip? Somewhere with no signal? Hearing this, Emily felt both bitter and absurd. She had already made countless excuses for him over the past few days. She had asked herself again and again, am I overreacting? Is there something else going on? But hearing those same excuses come from her mom made her realize just how weak and ridiculous they sounded. A business trip? She took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "Mom, if he went on a trip, wouldn't he tell me? Would he leave without packing anything?" When he left, nothing in the closet was missing. He only took his car keys and his wallet. He didn't go on a trip, he did this on purpose. This time, her mom didn't argue. There was a long silence. Then she said the one thing Emily hadn't wanted to admit, but couldn't deny anymore. "He did it on purpose, didn't he?" Emily's eyes instantly filled with tears. She bit her lip, trying to keep her voice from shaking. "Yes. He did it on purpose." Her mom didn't offer empty comfort. Instead, she switched straight into problem-solving mode. Her voice became firm and decisive. "Gather your bank books and the property documents under your name. Then go see a lawyer. Listen to me, don't let your emotions take over. Your job now is to get back everything that belongs to you." Emily felt a mix of emotions hearing this. She started to say, "Mom, but was cut off." "Don't tell me you still love him," her mom said, her tone carrying both concern and firmness. "Love goes both ways. If he really loved you, would he treat you like this?" That sentence hit Emily like a hammer. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. If love is mutual, then what was this? After hanging up, Emily tossed her phone onto the couch. She felt completely drained, collapsing into the cushions. Her hands were still trembling. She looked around the familiar living room. Her eyes landed on their wedding photo on the wall, the two of them smiling so brightly, so sweetly. She couldn't understand how everything had changed in just 3 years. They had been married for 3 years. From meeting, to falling in love, to getting married, they had always been seen as the perfect couple. He had been attentive, gentle, and caring. She remembered one night when she had a fever. Without hesitation, he carried her to the hospital, stayed by her side all night, and still went to work the next day. She thought that kind of life would last forever. That she would always be loved, protected, and cherished. But now? She didn't even know where he was, what he was doing, or who he was with. Every message she sent, every call she made, met with nothing but silence. It felt like shouting into a bottomless void. You expect an echo, but all you hear is your own voice fading away. "So it was all fake," she murmured, so softly she could barely hear herself. She didn't know how long she sat there. By the time she looked up again, it was already dark outside. She got up and walked into the study. His desk was still there, with a book he had been reading before he left. She flipped it open casually and found a neatly folded piece of paper inside. She recognized the handwriting immediately. It was hers. It was a love letter she had written to him on her birthday last year. Back then, she had been full of love, writing with tenderness about her hopes for the future and her feelings for him. Now, it felt like a cruel joke. She looked at it without a trace of warmth, only a sense of being mocked. Without hesitation, she crumpled it up and tossed it into the trash. Then she started going through his things. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for. Not clues about his disappearance, because she already knew he hadn't disappeared. He had chosen to vanish. What she needed was proof, concrete proof that his feelings for her had already changed, or were gone entirely. She opened the bottom drawer of his desk, the one she had never touched before. She had always believed that marriage required space, that privacy should be respected. But now, that idea felt almost laughable. If there's no basic honesty in a marriage, then privacy is just a cover for deception and betrayal. Inside the drawer, there were no dramatic secrets, no photos of another woman, no love letters. Just some scattered stationery, and an old, yellowed notebook. Curious, she picked it up. The cover was worn, clearly years old. She opened it. On the first page, written in neat, delicate handwriting, was a name, Lily. Emily's heart dropped. That wasn't her name. She kept flipping through the pages. The notebook recorded the life of a girl, from high school to college, and into her working years. What she liked to eat, what colors she liked to wear, the music she loved, the movies she enjoyed. When she did well on exams, he felt proud of her. When she was sick, he secretly went to see her. When she graduated, he stood in the crowd, watching her from afar as she smiled in her cap and gown. Every page was filled with tenderness and love, careful, restrained, yet deeply intense. The kind of emotion that practically spilled off the yellowed pages. Emily turned page after page, her heart sinking deeper each time. Finally, she reached the last page. There was only one sentence, written in slightly messy handwriting, as if it had been written in a moment of overwhelming emotion. 10 years, and I still can't forget you, Lily. Emily stared at that line, unable to speak. It felt like an invisible hand had gripped her heart, making it hard to breathe. 10 years. He had loved that woman for 10 years. And they had only been married for 3. Suddenly, she felt ridiculous and tragic. The happiness she believed in, the love she thought was unique, it was all a joke. She had never been the heroine of his story. She was just a substitute. A stand-in to fill the emptiness while he couldn't forget his first love. Lily, she whispered, her voice dry like sand scraping her throat. She didn't cry. She didn't even know why she couldn't cry. Maybe she was too shocked. Or maybe her heart had already gone cold. Mechanically, she placed the notebook back where it had been, and closed the drawer. Then she walked over to the cabinet in the living room and took out a delicate metal box. Inside were all their wedding keepsakes, boutonnieres from the ceremony, plane tickets from their first trip, old movie stubs, and their wedding rings. She opened the box and took out the ring. Under the light, it sparkled brilliantly, but the shine stung her eyes. When they bought it, he had said it was his promise to her for a lifetime. But now, that promise felt just like the ring's glow, hollow and painfully ironic. Without hesitation, she tossed it into the trash. It's over, she said to herself, her voice eerily calm. She went into the bedroom and took her ID and passport from the nightstand. Then she opened the safe and took out her property documents and bank cards. She didn't cry. The tears had already run dry the moment she saw that name in the notebook. All she felt now was anger, and a strange, unfamiliar calm. The kind of calm that comes after a storm, when the sea looks still, but lifeless. She picked up her phone and called her best friend, Jenny. Hey, Jenny. What's wrong? You sound off. It was noisy on Jenny's end, like she was outside, but she immediately quieted down when she heard Emily's voice. I need a favor. Tell me. Find me the best divorce lawyer you can. There was a sudden silence on the other end. After a moment, Jenny spoke again, her voice full of shock and concern. What happened? Emily took a deep breath and said, in a calm tone that even felt unfamiliar to herself, I'm getting a divorce. Did he cheat? Jenny asked carefully. Cheat? Emily let out a bitter laugh, full of exhaustion and sarcasm. He doesn't even acknowledge that I exist anymore. Jenny, I haven't heard from him in a week. I've sent dozens of messages, called him countless times, he hasn't replied once. Not a single time. What the K? Jenny's voice shot up instantly, filled with anger. He really did that? Who does he think he is? What wouldn't he dare to do? Emily's tone was frighteningly calm, so calm that it worried Jenny even more. He's already disappeared. What else is there that he wouldn't do? Don't panic, Don't stress, I'll find you a lawyer right now. The best divorce lawyer in the city. Just wait for me. Jenny's voice carried a fierce determination, the kind of loyalty that says asterisk I've got your back no matter what. Asterisk okay. Thank you. Don't thank me, we're sisters, Jenny said, then paused, her voice softening with concern. Where are you right now? At home. I'm coming over. No, Emily said, stopping her. You take care of what you need to. I'm fine. How can I not worry about you being alone? Jenny insisted. I'm really okay, Emily said softly, but firmly. I'm not crying, I'm not making a scene. I just want to deal with this. Cleanly. Decisively. Jenny was quiet for a moment before finally saying, all right. I'll send you the lawyer's contact info. But listen, if anything happens, anytime, you call me immediately. Okay. After hanging up, Emily stood by the window, staring at the blue sky outside. The sunlight was bright, almost painfully so. She walked out onto the balcony and looked at the flowers they had planted together. Roses, daisies, lavender, all her favorites. When they planted them, he had said their love would be like these flowers, growing more beautiful. Day by day. Emily stared at them expressionlessly. Then she bent down, and one by one, threw each pot off the balcony. The pots shattered against the concrete below with sharp, cracking sounds. Broken ceramic and soil scattered everywhere. With every pot that hit the ground, it felt like something inside her shattered too. All those sweet memories, all the beautiful moments, they were like those pots now. Completely broken. Impossible to piece back together. She went back inside and began organizing everything in the house. She worked methodically, sorting things into categories. What was hers went on one side. What was his went on the other. As for the things they had bought together, things too hard to divide, she paused for a moment, then put all of them on his side. She didn't want anything connected to him anymore. Not even a towel. Not even a cup. She packed her belongings into several large boxes, clothes, books, skincare products, her laptop. There wasn't much. After 3 years of marriage, this was all she could take with her. Then she picked up her phone and called a moving company. Hello, I need to move. Of course, ma'am. When would you like us to come? Now. No hesitation. She didn't want to stay there for even one more second. Everything in that place made her feel sick, like she couldn't breathe. Half an hour later, the moving truck arrived. Emily stood downstairs, watching as 2 workers carried her belongings out one by one and loaded them onto the truck. She stood at the doorway and took one last look at the home she once believed would be her lifelong refuge. Now, it was nothing more than an empty shell, filled with lies and deception. She closed the door and walked away. She didn't look back. She didn't want to see it again. She got into the moving truck, and it slowly pulled away. The driver asked, "Ma'am, what's your new address?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then gave him her mother's address. She had nowhere else to go. As the car drove through the streets, she watched the scenery blur past outside the window. Her phone sat quietly in her bag. She hadn't turned it on. She didn't want to receive any messages. Especially not his. When they arrived downstairs at her mom's place, she paid the driver and said to the movers, "You can just leave the boxes here. I'll carry them up myself." The workers hesitated. "Ma'am, we can help you take them upstairs." "No, thank you," Emily said firmly. She picked up a heavy box of clothes herself and walked inside. Her mom lived on the 6th floor, and there was no elevator. She set the box down at the door and knocked. The door opened quickly. Her mom stood there in an apron, holding a spatula. When she saw Emily, she froze for a moment. In that single glance, her mom understood everything. "You really moved back?" her mom asked softly. Emily nodded. "Yeah, I brought all my things." Her mom didn't say anything else. She simply helped her carry everything upstairs. The 2 of them worked in silence, but with perfect understanding. After they moved everything into Emily's room, her mom closed the door and said, "You must be hungry. I made your favorite, sweet and sour ribs." That was all it took. Emily's tears finally broke free. She threw her arms around her mom and burst into sobs, like a child who had been holding an unbearable pain, finally finding a safe place to cry. "Mom," she choked, unable to finish. "Don't say anything," her mom said gently, patting her back, her voice as soft as when she used to lull her to sleep as a child. "Eat first. We'll talk after." Emily cried uncontrollably. This was the first time she had cried all week. All the hurt, all the anger, all the unwillingness to accept it, all the emotions she had suppressed came crashing out like a flood breaking through a dam. After crying for a long time, she finally calmed down. She sat at the dining table, staring at the plate of steaming, sweet and sour ribs in front of her. Her mom sat across from her, quietly watching. "Eat," her mom said. Emily picked up her chopsticks and took a bite. It tasted exactly the same as she remembered, sweet and tangy, her favorite. She ate while tears kept falling. They dripped into her bowl, mixing with the rice, salty, bitter. Her mom didn't rush her or ask questions. She simply stayed with her, handing her tissues, pouring her water. After dinner, Emily washed the dishes. Her mom walked over and said softly, "I've always kept your room for you." Emily's heart tightened again. She turned to look at her mom, her eyes reddening. "Mom, thank you." "Silly girl," her mom said, gently patting her head, her eyes full of love and concern. "I'm your mother." The next day, Emily received a message from Jenny. True to her word, Jenny had already found a lawyer and sent over the contact details. It was the best divorce lawyer in their city, last name Thompson, a seasoned veteran with years of experience. Emily didn't hesitate. She picked up her phone and dialed the number. "Hello, is this Attorney Thompson?" "Yes, this is Thompson. May I ask who's calling?" "I'm a friend of Jenny's. I'd like to consult with you about a divorce." "Of course. Are you available to come in now?" "Yes, I'm on my way." After hanging up, Emily said to her mother, "Mom, I'm heading out for a bit. I'm going to the law office." Her mother nodded. "Go and come back early." Emily put on her coat, grabbed her bag, and left the house. She hailed a cab and went straight to the law office. Attorney Thompson's office was simply decorated, with no unnecessary ornamentation. It gave off an air of professionalism and efficiency. He was a man in his 50s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking both sharp and approachable. "Hello, I'm Attorney Thompson." He stood up and shook Emily's hand. "Hello." Emily sat down and told him everything, from beginning to end. She told him how her husband, Mark, had ignored her messages for an entire week, about the notebook she had found, and about the woman named Lily mentioned inside it. Attorney Thompson listened carefully, occasionally jotting things down in his notebook. When she finished, he was silent for a moment before saying, "From a legal standpoint, your husband's behavior could be considered a form of abandonment. The period is short, yes, but combined with the fact that he has completely cut off communication with you, we may have grounds to file for divorce on that basis." That argument would likely hold up in court. Emily nodded. "What about the property? Did you and your husband sign a prenuptial agreement?" "No. The house, the car, our savings, pretty much everything was acquired after we got married." "Then that simplifies things." Attorney Thompson adjusted his glasses, sounding confident. "Under the laws of this state, marital property is generally divided equitably in a divorce. Since there are no children involved, the court will consider a number of factors, including both parties' income, each person's contribution to the household, and who bears responsibility for the breakdown of the marriage. Overall, the situation appears favorable to you." Emily hesitated, then asked, "Since he ignored me for a whole week, can I ask for emotional damages?" Attorney Thompson gave a small smile, one meant to reassure her. "You can ask, but the amount is usually not very high. In the United States, claims for emotional distress based purely on emotional neglect generally don't receive strong legal support. At most, it tends to be more symbolic than substantial." "I don't want money." Emily's eyes turned cold and resolute. "Attorney Thompson, I don't want his money. I want him ruined. I want everyone to know what kind of person he really is." The smile on Attorney Thompson's face stiffened slightly. He looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes, along with a trace of caution. He had seen all kinds of divorcing couples, people who tore each other apart over money, who fought viciously over children, but a woman who clearly said she wanted no money, only to see the other person disgraced, was rare. "Ma'am, are you certain?" he asked seriously. "That would mean gathering a large amount of evidence, and the litigation process would become more complicated and much longer. Legally speaking, ruining someone is not a remedy the court can award. What we can do is expose his wrongdoing in court, abandonment, emotional infidelity, things like that. Those facts would go on record and become part of the public legal documents. That may achieve the effect you're looking for." "I'm sure," Emily said without the slightest hesitation. "What kind of evidence do I need to provide? Do you have anything already? Photos of the notebook, for example? Or records of the messages you sent him?" "Yes." Emily took out her phone, pulled up the photos of the notebook, and handed them to Attorney Thompson. This was in a drawer in his desk. "It records all kinds of details about his first love. I took pictures of it." Attorney Thompson studied the photos carefully and nodded. "This could be used as evidence of emotional infidelity. It's not direct proof of a physical affair, but it can help establish disloyalty to the marriage and emotional deception toward you." In a divorce case, that could work very much in your favor. And what about the fact that he ignored me for a whole week? That's a bit harder to prove directly, but we can use your WeChat records and call logs to show his indifference and abandonment. We'll need to demonstrate that you made repeated attempts to contact him and that he gave no response whatsoever. That can support the claim that he violated his obligations within the marriage. Then, I'll leave it in your hands. Not at all. That's my job. Attorney Thompson smiled again, but this time there was a note of respect in it. Don't worry. I'll do everything I can to help you win this case. After leaving the law office, Emily didn't feel much lighter. She walked through the busy streets of New York, watching crowds of people rush past her, each person carrying a story of their own. Suddenly, she felt lost. Even if she won the case, what then? What was she supposed to do with her life after that? How was she supposed to start over? Just then, her phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. She answered. Hello? On the other end came a voice she knew all too well, a voice that used to make her feel safe and warm. Babe, where are you? Emily's heart gave a violent jolt. It was Mark. She said nothing. She just listened quietly, not knowing what she should say. Are you okay? There was confusion in his voice, and beneath it, a trace of panic he couldn't quite hide. Emily let out a cold laugh, dripping with sarcasm. Oh, so you still remember I'm your wife? What's wrong? He sounded flustered now, his voice unsteady. Where are you? I'll come get you. You don't need to find me. Emily's voice was as cold as winter lake water. Let's get divorced. The line went dead silent. After a long while, he finally spoke again, his voice trembling as if he'd just been struck by something. What did you say? I said, let's get divorced, Emily repeated, word by word. Why? His voice was full of confusion and grievance, as if he were the one being wronged. Why? Emily raised her voice, the anger she had been suppressing all week finally finding an outlet. You seriously have the nerve to ask me why? Do you even realize you haven't replied to me in a week? Do you know I've been terrified something happened to you? Do you know how many messages I sent you? How many times I called you? Do you know that every single night I couldn't sleep, just staring at my phone? Afraid I'd miss even one message from you? You don't know any of that. He began, trying to explain. You don't need to explain, Emily cut him off. I don't want to hear it anymore. I just want to know why you did this to me. Silence again. That silence was like a blade, slicing away at the very last scraps of hope Emily had left. She took a deep breath and asked the question that disgusted even her as it left her mouth. Do you have another woman? No, he denied immediately, loudly, and urgently. There's no other woman. Then why didn't you reply to my messages? I was busy. Really busy. It was a very important project, closed off, no phones allowed. Busy? Emily let out a cold laugh. No one is too busy to send a text saying, I'm okay. No project is so closed off that you can't even check your phone in the bathroom. Do you really think I'd believe that? You don't need to say anything else. Emily's voice suddenly sounded deeply tired, the kind of weariness that rises from the bottom of your soul and makes even one more word feel exhausting. We're done. Babe, don't do this. I really love you. You really what? Emily asked mockingly. Really love me? Really care about me? If you really loved me, if you really cared about me, would you treat me like this? Would you leave me alone to suffer through an entire week of endless waiting and fear? That's enough. Emily didn't want to hear another word. She hung up, then blocked that unknown number, along with every other way he had of contacting her. Her heart hurt. Not with a sharp, piercing pain, but with a dull, constant ache that felt suffocating. And yet, along with the pain, there was also a strange sensation, like finally waking up from a nightmare. She was still shaken, still hurting, but at least, she was awake now. She slipped her phone back into her bag and kept walking. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew one thing. She didn't want to go back to that home filled with lies and deception. That home no longer existed. Emily wandered aimlessly until she found herself standing in front of a cafe. She pushed the door open and sat down by the window. A server approached with a smile. Hi, what can I get for you? A latte, please. Of course. One moment. Emily stared out the window as people passed by, couples holding hands, young parents pushing strollers, elderly people walking their dogs. Everyone had their own life, their own happiness, or their own struggles. Suddenly, she felt like her life was just like that cup of latte. At first, bitter like coffee. But maybe, by the end, there would be some sweetness from the milk. She took out her phone and opened WeChat. There were unread messages from Jenny. How are you? What did the lawyer say? Emily replied, I'm okay. He said I can file. That's good, Jenny replied instantly. Where are you now? At a cafe. I'm coming to you. No need. Why not? How can I not worry about you being alone? I'm really okay, Emily said. I just want some time to myself. All right, Jenny replied. But call me anytime if you need anything. Emily set her phone down and took a sip of her coffee. The bitterness spread across her tongue. She closed her eyes, thinking back on the past 3 years. Picnics in Central Park. Going to see the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center in winter. Cooking together in their small apartment, then curling up on the couch to watch movies. Those sweet memories played through her mind like scenes from a movie. She had believed they were real. She thought that was love. That was marriage. That was forever. Now, it all felt like a one-woman show. He was acting, and she believed it. She opened her eyes and looked out the window again. Slowly, her gaze became steady. Determined. The past was the past. She couldn't keep living in those memories. She couldn't keep hurting over someone who wasn't worth it. She had to start over. She picked up her phone and opened Instagram. She posted a simple update, new beginning. The photo was of the steaming latte in front of her. After posting, she turned off her phone and quietly finished her coffee. She didn't know what her future would look like. But she knew one thing, she would never go back. Not to that house filled with lies. Not to that man who had broken her heart. She would start over. Live for herself. And find a happiness that truly belonged to her. She finished her coffee and stood up, ready to leave. Just then, her phone rang. It was her mom. Hey mom, what's wrong? Mark is here, her mom said, her voice tense. Emily's heart sank. He was here. Right outside her mom's place. What should she do? Should she go back? Face him? She took a deep breath, steadying her voice. Mom, don't open the door. Is he still knocking? Yes. He keeps knocking. I haven't opened it. Don't open it, Emily repeated firmly. I'm coming back right now. She hung up, rushed out of the cafe, and flagged down a cab. Brooklyn, XX Street, she told the driver. As the car sped through traffic, her mind was in chaos. She didn't know how to face him. She didn't know why he had come back. Was he trying to win her back? Or was there some other reason? I can't go soft, she kept telling herself. I can't let a few sweet words pull me back in. If I forgive him now, then all my pain, all my struggle, everything I've decided, will mean nothing. I can't let it all be for nothing. The cab pulled up in front of her mom's building. The moment Emily stepped out, she saw him. Mark was pacing anxiously outside, holding his phone, as if trying to call someone. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled, he looked like he had rushed back from somewhere far away. Emily stood at a distance, quietly watching him. There was no ripple in her heart. No love. No hate. Just complete indifference. She slowly walked toward him. Hearing her footsteps, he turned around. The moment he saw her, his eyes lit up, like a drowning man spotting a lifeline. Babe. He rushed toward her, trying to pull her into an embrace. Emily stepped back, dodging him cleanly. No hesitation. Don't touch me, she said coldly. He froze, his hand hanging awkwardly in midair. Babe, just listen to me, let me explain. Explain what? Emily cut him off. Explain why you ignored me for a week. Or explain why you kept that notebook about your first love, where you wrote, 10 years later, I still can't forget you? His face went pale instantly. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. That notebook was his biggest secret, the one he thought would never be discovered. Go on, Emily stepped closer, her gaze sharp. Explain. I wrote that when I was younger, he stumbled over his words. You don't need to say anything. Emily shook her head. I don't want to hear it anymore. She walked past him and into the building. Babe, he called after her, his voice filled with desperation. Emily didn't turn back. She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 6th floor. As the doors slowly closed, she saw him standing there, watching her, his face full of helplessness and despair. Goodbye, she whispered softly. She didn't know if she was saying it to him, or to herself. The elevator reached the 6th floor. Emily walked to her mom's door, took out her key, and went inside. Her mom saw her and let out a breath of relief. You're back. Mom, is he still downstairs? Yes. He hasn't left. He's just standing there. Emily nodded, then walked to the balcony and looked down. He was still there, pacing, occasionally looking up. She watched him. Like she was looking at a stranger. She made her decision. She would cut him off completely. She took out her phone and called Attorney Thompson. Mr. Thompson, I want to proceed with the divorce immediately. As soon as possible. Understood. We can file with the court tomorrow. Okay. After hanging up, she looked down at him again. Her heart was calm. She was ready to start over. The next morning, Emily brought all the necessary documents and went to court with Attorney Thompson. They filed the petition. The clerk told them the other party would be notified within the required time frame. Walking out of the courthouse, Emily felt like a huge weight had finally been lifted from her chest. She returned to her mom's house. Her mom asked how it went. Emily said they had filed and were waiting for notification. Her mom nodded and didn't press further. Emily went back to her room and opened her laptop. She started job hunting. It had been a long time since she worked. After getting married, she had quit her job to become a full-time wife, taking care of Mark and managing their home. Now, she needed a job. She needed to support herself. She needed a fresh start. She sent out several resumes and quickly began receiving interview invitations. Looking at her phone, her eyes filled with a new kind of hope. She didn't know what her future would look like. But she knew this, she would never rely on anyone again. She would build her own future with her own hands. A few days later, she got another call. It was Mark again, using a new number. He begged her not to divorce him. His voice was hoarse, almost breaking. He said he was wrong, completely wrong. Emily let out a cold laugh. Now you're begging me? What exactly did you do wrong? I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have ignored your messages. I shouldn't have kept that notebook. I'll give you one chance, Emily said coldly. Come stand in front of me and explain everything. Face to face. There was silence. After a long pause, he said, I can't come. Why? I'm out of the country. In California. There's a project here. Emily's heart dropped. So he really was out of the country. She had thought he was lying, hiding somewhere, avoiding her. But no, he had actually gone somewhere that far away. You're overseas, she let out a cold laugh. You left the country and didn't even bother telling me? What do you take me for? I had my reasons. Your reasons? What kind of reason makes you too busy to send even one message? Emily didn't want to hear another word. She hung up and blocked that number too. She called Attorney Thompson and told him Mark was abroad. He reassured her that it didn't matter. They could apply for a default judgment. As long as the evidence was solid, the court could still grant the divorce. A month later, Emily received the court's decision. The divorce was granted. Based on the law and the evidence she provided, most of the marital assets were awarded to her. Emily looked at the judgment, and finally, the tears came. Not tears of joy. Not tears of sorrow. Tears of release. Tears of finally waking up from a nightmare. Tears of finally being able to start over. She placed the document on her nightstand and began packing her things. She was moving out of her mom's house. She had found a new job at a design firm in Manhattan. The company had provided her with a small studio apartment. She decided it was time to move in and begin her new life. She didn't make a big announcement. She just packed quietly. When her mom saw her, she asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm moving into the apartment my company provided." Her mom hesitated, worried. "Are you going to be okay, on your own?" Emily smiled. There was relief in that smile, but also strength. "Mom, I've grown up. It's time for me to start my new life." Her mom nodded and didn't say anything more, just helped her pack. On moving day, her mom called a taxi. Emily loaded her luggage into the car piece by piece. Her mom stood at the door, watching her, her eyes full of reluctance. "I'll come visit you often," Emily said. "Okay." Emily got into the taxi and left the home that had helped her rebuild herself. She moved into her new place. The apartment was small, but warm and cozy. There was a large window with a view of the Manhattan skyline. She unpacked everything, then sat on the couch, looking out at the city lights. Every light represented a story. And hers was just beginning. She picked up her phone and called Jenny. "Hey, Jenny. What's up?" "I moved." "What? Where to?" "My company gave me an apartment in Manhattan. I just moved in." "That's amazing." Jenny sounded genuinely excited. "I'm coming over tomorrow, we're celebrating." "No need." "Why not?" "I just want some time alone," Emily said. "I want to really feel this new life." Jenny paused. "All right. How are you doing?" "I'm good," Emily said calmly, with quiet satisfaction. "I've got a new job. A new place. I'm doing well. That's all that matters." After hanging up, Emily looked out at the glowing city. Her heart was calm. She had completely walked out of that failed marriage. She had completely let go of that man. Her new life had begun. Then her phone rang again. Another unknown number. She answered. "Hello?" On the other end came a familiar voice, the one she thought she would never hear again. "Babe, I'm back." Emily's heart sank. He was back. She didn't know why, but she knew one thing, it had nothing to do with her anymore. What does that have to do with me? Her voice was ice cold. Babe, don't call me that, Emily cut him off. We're divorced. Legally, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. She hung up and blocked the number. She wouldn't give him another chance. Not even the smallest opening to disrupt her new life. The moment the call ended, her heart didn't stir at all. She went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and returned to the couch, continuing to watch the night skyline. She thought that was the end of it. She thought she would finally have peace. But Mark didn't give up. Her phone rang again. Another new number. She hung up. Then another. And another. Third. Fourth. He kept changing numbers, determined to reach her. Finally, Emily turned off her phone. The world fell silent. All that remained was the sound of the wind outside and the occasional passing car. She sipped her water, savoring the quiet. Asterisk knock. 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 Asterisk the sudden, urgent pounding on the door shattered the silence. Emily's heart tightened for a brief moment, then quickly settled. She put down her glass and walked to the door, peeking through the peephole. It was him. Mark stood outside, anxious, holding a bouquet of roses that had already begun to wilt. Emily didn't open the door. The knocking continued, louder, faster. Emily, open the door. I know you're home, his voice came through, hoarse and tired. Emily stood silently behind the door, unmoving. Emily, I was wrong. Please, just open the door and let me explain. I'm begging you. I had my reasons for not replying that week. Really. Just let me explain. Don't do this. Let's talk. We've been together for 3 years, are you really going to throw it all away? He started pounding on the door, the sound echoing harshly in the quiet hallway. Emily looked at the door coldly, like she was looking at a stranger. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Her voice was soft, but firm, cutting cleanly through the door. The knocking stopped instantly. He froze, then spoke again, his voice lower, pleading. Emily, I know you're still angry. But at least give me one chance. Just once. Let me explain. I'm not angry, Emily said. Slowly, each word steady and clear. I want to cut ties with you completely. We're divorced. Legally, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Do you understand? Silence. A long one. When he spoke again, his voice carried desperation and helplessness. Why? Just because I didn't reply for a week? You're really going to be this heartless? Heartless? Emily repeated. You should ask yourself that. I thought we had trust. But you disappeared without a trace. What part of that is trust? I didn't disappear, you did it on purpose, Emily cut him off. You couldn't spare a single text. Not a call. Not even I'm okay. This isn't about trust. It's about the fact that you have zero respect for me. Babe, I was working on a very important project, something that affects our future, a project. Emily interrupted again. Do you really think I believe that? Were you so busy you didn't eat or sleep? So busy you couldn't check your phone in the bathroom? So busy you couldn't glance at it for 1 second? Silence. She continued, her voice cold and unwavering. Stop lying to yourself. You weren't busy. You just didn't want to talk to me anymore. You didn't want this marriage anymore. You were just trying to force me to leave. And I did. I even left you some dignity, she added, her tone icy. I didn't expose everything in court. I didn't mention the notebook. I didn't mention Lily. I didn't mention those words you wrote, about how you couldn't forget her after 10 years. She could hear his breathing on the other side, heavy, uneven. He was shaken. That secret, he must have thought it would stay buried forever. She didn't give him a chance to respond. Leave. Now. Or I will call the police. There was a pause. Then his voice came again, hoarse, almost breaking. Are you really going to be this cruel? Cruel? Emily said tiredly. When you disappeared for a week, did you think about how cruel that was? When you held on to that notebook about your first love, when you wrote you couldn't forget her for 10 years, did you think about how cruel that was? You think I'm cruel now? That's only because you were even crueler to me. You saw it? His voice was filled with shock and panic. I did, Emily said calmly. And I used it as evidence in our divorce. Emily, listen to me, that notebook is from a long time ago. I don't want to hear it, she cut him off again. I gave you a chance. You didn't take it. Go home. There's nothing left between us. Don't do this, I'll say this one last time, Emily's voice rose, firm and unquestionable. Leave my home. Or I'm calling the police. There was silence outside. She could hear him take a deep breath, and slowly let it out. Then came the sound of footsteps fading, one step at a time, farther and farther away. Emily leaned against the door, closed her eyes, and let out a long breath. Her palms were soaked with sweat. After that, her new life finally settled into a rhythm. Every day, she went to work and came home on time. The job was busy, but for the first time in a long while, she felt fulfilled. She worked as a graphic designer at a design firm. Her coworkers were kind and friendly. After work, she would go to the gym, running, doing yoga, letting sweat wash away the exhaustion of the day. Or she'd meet up with Jenny for dinner, shopping, or a movie. Her weekends no longer revolved around a man. No more grocery shopping, cooking, laundry for someone else. Instead, she signed up for classes, cooking, floral arranging, painting. She tried them all. She realized that life could be so colorful, so full of possibilities. She stopped paying attention to anything about Mark. She blocked him on all social media. She even changed her phone number, giving it only to a few close people. Mark had completely disappeared from her world. For a long time, he didn't affect her emotions at all. She thought her heart had finally found peace, that she had truly let go. Until one day, she came home from work, and as the elevator doors opened, she saw a familiar figure. Not Mark. Someone else. Someone she never expected. It was her former mother-in-law, Mark's mom, Mrs. Davis. She stood outside Emily's apartment, holding several insulated food containers. Her face looked tired, worn, older than before. Emily froze. Mrs. Davis saw her too. A flicker of emotion crossed her face, a guilt, concern, and a hint of pleading. "You're back," she said softly, almost cautiously. Emily didn't respond. She just looked at her. "I brought you some food." Mrs. Davis lifted the containers slightly, forcing a small smile. "I made your favorite chicken soup." "No, thank you," Emily replied calmly, polite but distant. "You've lost weight," Mrs. Davis said, looking her over with concern. "Is work too tiring? You need to eat well." "Mrs. Davis, what do you need?" Emily asked directly. She had no interest in small talk. Mrs. Davis hesitated, her eyes shifting. "I came to see you." "What for?" "Could we talk inside?" she asked, lowering her voice as she glanced around. Emily looked at the containers in her hands, then at her tired expression. After a moment, she opened the door. Mrs. Davis stepped inside, glancing around the small apartment. "Are you settling in okay?" she asked carefully, almost trying to please her. "I am," Emily answered briefly. Mrs. Davis set the food on the table, then turned and walked over, gently taking Emily's hand. That hand, rough, warm, once felt familiar and comforting. "Please, don't blame him," she said, her eyes reddening. Emily's heart went cold instantly. That sentence extinguished the last bit of warmth she had for this woman. "Mrs. Davis, what do you mean?" Emily's tone turned sharp. "He's not doing well lately," she sighed. "Work isn't going well. He's lost a lot of weight. He drinks every day. He can't sleep." "So?" Emily shot back. "What does that have to do with me?" "He really regrets it." Mrs. Davis tightened her grip on Emily's hand. "He's been trying to find you, but you blocked him everywhere. He had no choice, so he asked me to come." "So that makes it okay for him to disappear for a week? To ignore every message? To leave me alone in that house, worrying myself sick, crying every day?" Emily's voice finally carried emotion, pain she had buried resurfacing. "He has his difficulties," Mrs. Davis sighed again, her eyes full of concern, but Emily knew exactly who that concern was for. "So his difficulties justify hurting me?" "He didn't mean to," she insisted. "He's just too proud. He didn't want you to worry." "Didn't mean to?" Emily looked at her coldly. "Do you really think I would still believe that?" "Don't say that about him. He's still he's nothing to me," Emily cut her off, each word clear and firm. "We're divorced. Legally, we have no relationship." Mrs. Davis fell silent. Her eyes reddened further, tears welling up. "Please," she suddenly tightened her grip, her voice trembling. "Just give him one more chance. Just one. For my sake, please?" Emily's heart turned to ice. She looked at the woman in front of her, the one who once felt like family. Now, she only felt distance and sadness. "Do you really think that's possible?" Emily asked softly, but firmly. "You were married," Mrs. Davis said, tears falling. "We were," Emily corrected her. "We aren't anymore. He regrets it. He's been trying to find you. He can try. I don't want to see him. He knows he was wrong." "Knows he was wrong?" Emily let out a cold, bitter laugh. "If he knew, would he disappear for a week? Would he ignore me completely? Would he keep that notebook about his first love?" She paused, her voice sharpening. "Do you even know what was written in that notebook? He wrote that he loved her for 10 years. That he couldn't forget her. Do you know how that felt when I read it? I felt like a joke. Like I was nothing but a replacement. Her words stunned Mrs. Davis. Her face turned pale. You knew, her voice trembled. Of course I knew, Emily said calmly. There was no warmth in her eyes, only quiet detachment. So please, stop speaking on his behalf. I will not forgive him. What we had is over. Mrs. Davis finally broke down. Tears streamed down her face like beads on a snapped string. Please, child. I'm begging you, she cried. He just made a mistake. He still has you in his heart, Mrs. Davis. Please leave. Emily pointed to the door, her tone firm and unquestionable. Mrs. Davis looked at her, tears pouring down. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, no words came out. Slowly, she stood up, picked up the food containers from the table. Her movements were heavy, weighed down. I'll go now. She walked to the door, then turned back to look at Emily one last time. Her eyes were full of pleading and reluctance. Emily said nothing. Mrs. Davis finally opened the door and walked out. The door closed softly behind her. Emily leaned against the door and let out a long breath. Her hands were trembling slightly. She had thought she had completely let go. But facing someone connected to that marriage again, all the old pain and resentment came rushing back like a tide. She walked into the kitchen, took out the trash, and replaced the bag. She didn't want anything from that past lingering in her home. She turned on the faucet and set the water to the coldest setting. Then she splashed her face again and again. The cold water cleared her mind. It steadied her heart. I don't love him anymore, she said to her reflection, her voice firm. I don't care about him anymore. My life has already started over. She returned to the living room, sat down on the couch, and called Jenny. The moment she heard Jenny's familiar voice, she felt a little more grounded. Hey, Jenny. What's up? Calling me at this hour? It sounded noisy on Jenny's end, like she was out somewhere. My ex-mother-in-law came. Jenny instantly quieted. What did she say? She asked me to give him another chance. Did you? Jenny's voice tensed. Of course not, Emily said firmly. How could I? Good. Jenny let out a breath. How are you feeling? I'm fine, Emily said, though her voice carried a trace of exhaustion. Just tired. Mentally. Don't overthink it. People like that aren't worth your energy. And his mom, honestly, how does she even have the nerve to ask you that? I know. I'm okay, really. Just a little tired. I'll be fine after some rest. Get some rest. I'll come see you tomorrow, we'll grab dinner. Okay. After hanging up, Emily looked out at the city lights. Her heart gradually settled again. She had made her choice. And she wouldn't regret it. Her life belonged to her, and only she got to decide what to do with it. Days passed. Her life became fuller, more structured. She almost forgot Mark entirely, forgot she had ever been in a failed marriage. She thought this was the ending. That she could move forward peacefully from here. Until one day. She was at work, going through emails as usual. Around 10 a.m., she received a message from an unfamiliar address, something that looked like a free email account. Curious, she opened it. There was no text. Just one image. She clicked it, zoomed in, and froze. In the photo was a scene she would never forget. Mark, her ex-husband, standing closely with a young, beautiful woman. The woman was striking. Long blonde hair, blue eyes, and her belly, slightly rounded. She was clearly several months pregnant. Next to the photo were a few short lines in English. Your husband got married to Our Lady 6 months ago. They're in California now, living very happily. Emily's heart dropped. It felt like an invisible hand had clenched around it, making it hard to breathe. She stared at the image, unable to speak. Mark was smiling, so happy, so content, holding that woman, wearing a kind of joy she had never seen on his face before. That smile hurt her eyes. And it hurt her heart even more. So this was the truth. He hadn't disappeared. He hadn't been busy with a project. He had already moved on. And not just that, the other woman was pregnant. 6 months ago, they hadn't even divorced yet. He was still her husband. She thought she had prepared herself for everything. She thought she wouldn't feel anything anymore. But seeing this, seeing it with her own eyes, still hit her like a blow. The betrayal. The deception. The humiliation. It felt like a sharp blade, stabbing straight into her chest. Her hands trembling, she picked up her phone and called Attorney Thompson. She needed clarity. She needed to know what this meant. Mr. Thompson, I need to tell you something important. Her voice shook slightly. Go ahead. Emily took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay composed, and told him everything about the email. There was a pause. Then his voice turned serious. Ma'am, could you forward that email to me? Of course. She sent it immediately. A few minutes later, he called back. His tone was grave. "Ma'am, this is more serious than we initially thought. If the information in that email is accurate, your ex-husband may have committed bigamy." Emily's heart jolted. Bigamy. The word struck like lightning, clearing everything in her mind at once. "Bigamy," she repeated softly. "Yes," Attorney Thompson explained. "Under federal law and the laws of most states, bigamy occurs when someone marries another person while still legally married. Your divorce was finalized last month, but the email claims he married that woman 6 months ago. At that time, your marriage was still legally valid. If that's true, it constitutes bigamy. But, the marriage happened in California. We were in New York." "That doesn't matter," he said. "No matter which state he married in, if it occurred while your marriage was still valid, it qualifies as bigamy. This becomes a legal issue beyond just one state. Then, what kind of evidence do we need? We need proof of his marriage in California. A marriage certificate would be key. Additionally, any evidence showing that he and that woman have been living as a married couple, joint accounts, shared property, witness statements, would strengthen the case." Emily swallowed. "Then, what should I do?" "Don't panic," Attorney Thompson reassured her. "I'll handle the investigation. We can hire a private investigator in California to look into his marriage records. If it's confirmed, we can file a new lawsuit and charge him with bigamy. That would make him criminally liable, and you could also receive additional civil compensation." "Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson." After hanging up, Emily sat there in a daze, her hands still trembling as she held her phone. That image replayed over and over in her mind. Mark, smiling so happily, holding that woman, something she had never seen him do with her. And that woman, carrying his child. Meanwhile, she had been the fool, making excuses for him, even feeling sorry for him. She really had been stupid. She picked up her phone and texted Jenny, "I need you. Now." Less than 20 minutes later, Jenny burst into her office. The moment she saw Emily's pale face and red eyes, she rushed over and pulled her into a tight hug. "What happened? You're scaring me." Emily didn't speak. She just handed her the phone and pointed at the email. Jenny looked down. As her eyes moved across the screen, her expression darkened. By the time she finished reading, her face flushed red with anger. "What the F***K? How dare he?" she exploded, her voice echoing in the office. Emily couldn't hold it in anymore. She broke down, clinging to Jenny as she sobbed. All the pain she thought she had already processed came pouring out again. "Jenny, I hate him so much," she cried, her voice shaking. "How could he do this to me? I gave him everything. I gave up my career, I loved him with everything I had, I trusted him, and he already had someone else, got married, even had a child on the way. What am I? What was I to him?" Jenny held her tightly, gently patting her back like soothing a child. "Don't cry, okay? Don't cry. He's not worth a single tear. He's trash, a liar. And he will pay for this. I promise you. You're going to see what karma looks like." After crying for a long time, Emily finally calmed down. She wiped her tears and looked at Jenny. This time, there was something different in her eyes, resolve, and a quiet fire. "I'm going to ruin him," she said clearly, every word deliberate. "I'm going to make him pay for betraying me." Jenny nodded firmly. "Then we'll do it together. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." What followed moved quickly. Attorney Thompson worked efficiently. He coordinated with contacts in California and soon obtained Mark's official marriage record. It confirmed everything. 6 months earlier, while still legally married to Emily, Mark had registered his marriage in California with a woman named Ashley. She was the daughter of a wealthy local businessman. The evidence was undeniable. Attorney Thompson filed a new lawsuit on Emily's behalf, charging Mark with bigamy. In the days that followed, Emily balanced her work with the legal process. She didn't cry over Mark anymore. She focused on one thing, making sure justice was served. On the day of the hearing, Emily saw Mark again in court. He sat at the defendant's table, thinner, exhausted, a shadow of his former self. Gone was the confidence he once carried. Beside him sat Ashley, young, beautiful, visibly pregnant, close to her due date. She looked at Emily with hostility and suspicion. The trial moved quickly. Emily's legal team presented solid evidence, including the California marriage record. The anonymous email was also traced. It had been sent by a domestic worker from Ashley's household, someone who couldn't stand what had happened and secretly reached out to Emily. Mark's lawyer tried to argue the case, but against such clear evidence, every defense fell apart. In the end, the judge delivered the verdict. Mark was guilty of bigamy. He was sentenced according to the law. Additionally, the division of marital assets from his marriage with Emily was reopened, and he was ordered to pay her substantial financial compensation. At the moment the verdict was read, Emily's tears fell again. But these tears were different. Not pain. Not grief. They were tears of victory. Of release. Of justice finally being served. She looked at Mark one last time. He sat there, head lowered, face pale and defeated. Beside him, Ashley was crying uncontrollably, her pregnant body trembling as she tried to comfort him, or perhaps vent her own anger. Emily turned away. It was over. Completely, finally over. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining brightly. Jenny ran over and hugged her tightly. You did it. You actually did it. Emily smiled through her tears. She looked up at the blue sky and took a deep breath. The air felt different. It smelled like freedom. Like a new life. From that day on, Emily truly turned the page. With the compensation, she put a down payment on a small apartment in Manhattan, her own home. Her career flourished. Her talent was recognized. She was promoted, got raises, and her future looked bright. She kept taking classes, her painting improved, her floral arrangements became more refined. She built new friendships. A new life. A new world. As for Mark, the man she had once loved, and once hated, he disappeared completely from her life. Sometimes, she would think back on that marriage. The sweetness. The pain. But those memories no longer hurt. They were like a book she had finished reading, closed, placed on a dusty shelf, never to be opened again. And finally, she understood, marriage is not the end. It's just a chapter in life. When that chapter ends, when the person beside you reveals who they truly are, the most important thing is not to stay and cry, not to try to hold on to someone who isn't worth it. It's to turn around and keep moving forward. She understood that her happiness should never depend on someone else. Her happiness belongs to her alone. Her life is hers to create. So to everyone listening, no matter what you're going through right now, whether you're in the sweetness of marriage or the pain of it, remember this, you are always the main character of your own life. Don't lose yourself for anyone. Don't forget who you are in any relationship. If your story is filled with pain and betrayal like Emily's, believe this, it will pass. You are strong enough to walk through the darkness and find the light again. Your new life is waiting for you. Marriage is not the end. It's simply another beginning. Whether it's the continuation of happiness or the end of pain, it will always lead you closer to your truest self. That's all for today's story. Thank you for listening to Marriage is Not the End. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have a story of your own, feel free to leave a comment or message me. See you next time. And remember, no matter what life throws at you, always have the courage to live for yourself.